In the depths of a remote forest, three heroic Labrador Retrievers discovered a police officer bound to a tree and left to die. What these incredible dogs did next not only saved his life, but exposed one of the largest criminal networks in America. Their extraordinary actions have left hardened officers in tears and millions inspired. This story proves why Labrador Retrievers are nature's most remarkable protectors. The moment these three dogs confronted armed criminals will leave you absolutely stunned. The morning mist clung to the Montana pines as retired K-9 officer Jack Reynolds sipped his coffee on the porch of his mountain cabin. His three Labrador Retrievers, Maverick, Sierra, and Ranger, lounged nearby, alert eyes scanning the tree line. After 20 years with the Special Response Team, Jack had chosen this isolated paradise to heal wounds both physical and emotional. Maverick, the eldest at 9, with distinguished chocolate fur, had specialized in tracking and search and rescue. Sierra, sleek with a golden coat, had been the department's top narcotics detection dog. Ranger, just 4 years old, with classic black fur, had been Jack's final trainee, a prodigy whose intelligence had earned commendations before completing his second year of service. This morning, Jack noticed unusual behavior in his companions. Sierra was first to alert, ears perked toward the northern forest, body rigid with concentration. Maverick joined her seconds later, rising to stand at attention. Ranger began pacing anxiously, emitting the low whine Jack recognized from their training days. "What is it?" Jack set down his mug, immediately tuned to their signals. Years as a unit had taught him to trust their instincts without question. Sierra's tail straightened. Her detection confirmed posture. Maverick issued a single deep bark. His action required signal. Ranger circled back to Jack, nudging his hand insistently before returning to the property line. "Show me," Jack commanded, grabbing his jacket and emergency pack, habits from police days that never faded. All three Labrador Retrievers bolted toward the dense tree line, navigating the underbrush with precision while checking that Jack followed. Their movement showed their training, Maverick taking point, Sierra sweeping right, and Ranger moving left, creating the search formation that had located dozens of missing persons. They moved beyond their usual routes, the dogs increasingly focused, noses working the ground, then testing air currents, communicating through subtle body language. Jack grew concerned when Sierra lowered her stance, indicating she had locked onto something significant. Maverick circled wide, a flanking maneuver they had executed when approaching danger. Ranger positioned himself between the other two, creating their signature triangulation pattern. "Easy," Jack whispered, hand reaching for the service weapon no longer at his hip. The Labrador Retrievers disappeared into a dense thicket. Sierra's urgent bark propelled him forward until he emerged into a clearing dominated by a massive oak. The sight stopped Jack cold. There, bound to the tree with zip ties and rope, was a uniformed police officer, his face bruised, dried blood caked at his temple, duct tape sealing his mouth. The officer's eyes, clouded with exhaustion, widened with hope at the sight of Jack and the three Labrador Retrievers. The dogs had positioned themselves protectively, Sierra circling the perimeter, Maverick standing guard before the injured man, while Ranger nosed at the bindings, attempting to loosen them. Jack rushed forward, removing the tape from the officer's mouth. "Thank God," the officer gasped. "How did you find me? They said no one would come this way." His parched lips struggled to form words. "Water, please." As Jack offered his canteen, Sierra stiffened at the clearing's edge, signaling potential danger. Maverick and Ranger immediately responded, creating a defensive perimeter around Jack and the injured man. "We need to get you out of here," Jack whispered, working on the bonds. "My dogs found you, but they're telling me we're not alone." The officer introduced himself as Deputy Mark Reeves from Eagle Ridge Police Department, speaking in desperate bursts as Jack freed him from the complex bindings that had cut into his skin. Been here almost 4 days, Mark explained, wincing as circulation returned to his extremities. I was investigating reports of unusual activity near the old logging roads. Locals mentioned seeing high-end vehicles that didn't belong. He accepted, Jack's canteen, drinking carefully as instructed. I found a sophisticated temporary camp, satellite communications, thermal equipment, not typical hunters. I was photographing the setup when they ambushed me. Never heard them coming. His eyes darkened. There were 6 of them, professional types. They interrogated me about who knew my location, whether I'd reported anything. The 3 Labrador Retrievers maintained vigilant positions with disciplined precision. Sierra made methodical sweeps around the perimeter, sampling air currents for approaching threats. Maverick stood guard, ears rotating to capture every forest sound. Ranger positioned himself beside Mark, occasionally nudging the officer's hand, in comfort behavior he'd shown with trauma victims during service. They're using the old Firewatch Tower as their coordination center, Mark continued, voice strengthening with hydration. From what I overheard, they've been moving drugs through these forests for months, using abandoned logging trails to bypass checkpoints. They mentioned a biggest-ever shipment tonight. He attempted to stand but stumbled, legs refusing to support him after days of immobility. "We need to get you to safety and alert your department," Jack said, catching him. "My cabin is 4 miles, northeast, but in your condition." Mark shook his head firmly. "No time. They're coming back at sunset to move me before the shipment arrives. They only kept me alive to determine if I'd reported my findings." His eyes darted nervously to the sun's position. "We have maybe 3 hours before they return." Jack assessed their situation rapidly. "How many officers could your department mobilize quickly?" 10 at most, including SWAT, but without knowing exactly where." Mark trailed off, the challenge evident. Before Jack could respond, all 3 Labrador Retrievers suddenly tensed in unison. Maverick's hackles raised. Sierra vanished silently into the underbrush, a tactical disappearance Jack recognized from countless operations. Ranger moved to a defensive position beside the injured officer. "Someone's coming," Jack whispered, guiding Mark behind the oak tree for cover. "Stay absolutely still." Heavy footsteps approached from the eastern path, accompanied by radio static and male voices. Jack pressed deeper against the tree bark, his arms steadying Mark beside him. The Labrador Retrievers had completely disappeared from view, a tactical advantage that had served them throughout their careers. "Remember your training," Jack whispered to the empty air, knowing his companions would understand. "Protect and detain." 2 armed men emerged into the clearing, stopping abruptly at the sight of the empty ropes. Their confusion was evident as they surveyed the scene, weapons raised and ready. "Find him!" the taller man ordered, voice tight with controlled panic. "He couldn't have gotten far. Check the perimeter." As the men separated to search, Jack caught Maverick's almost imperceptible signal, a single low-pitched grunt that had always meant ready for command. What happened next demonstrated why Labrador Retrievers remain unparalleled in tactical situations. As the armed men spread through the clearing, Sierra emerged silently from the undergrowth behind the leader. In one powerful leap, she launched at his gun arm, clamping down with controlled pressure, disarming him without causing fatal injury. The man's surprised cry shattered the forest silence, his weapon dropping uselessly. Simultaneously, Maverick burst from the opposite direction, targeting the second man with precision. The Labrador's substantial weight drove him to the ground, pinning him while baring impressive teeth inches from his throat. Ranger, the youngest but equally effective, secured the perimeter with lightning speed, ensuring no additional threats approached. His vigilant patrols around the clearing's edge showcased the breed's legendary ability to multitask in crisis situations. Jack seized the moment of confusion, emerging from behind the tree and retrieving the fallen weapons. Years of police training flooded back as he secured both men with their own zip ties, applying them with professional efficiency. "Eagle Ridge Police," Mark announced with as much authority as his condition allowed. "You're under arrest." The two traffickers, subdued and shocked by the coordinated canine attack, stared at the three Labrador Retrievers with disbelief. Few criminals ever experienced the precision and effectiveness of properly trained Labrador Retrievers in action. "There are more coming," the younger trafficker warned, eyes fixed nervously on Maverick's unwavering stance. "A dozen men with the main shipment at sunset. They'll kill everyone if they find us like this." Jack checked his watch. Barely 3 hours until sunset. Their options were limited. They were miles from his cabin with no vehicle or radio. Mark was in no condition for a rapid hike, and the traffickers would soon be missed by their associates. We'd see. "Need to move," Jack decided, assessing Mark's condition. "Can you make it to higher ground? We need a defensive position and vantage point." Mark nodded, determination overcoming his physical weakness. "What about them?" he asked, gesturing toward the bound men. "They're coming with us," Jack replied. "Insurance." As they prepared to move, Sierra suddenly stiffened, attention fixed on something deeper in the forest. Maverick and Ranger mirrored her alertness instantly, all three dogs communicating through subtle shifts in posture that Jack recognized all too well. "There's someone else out there," Jack whispered, positioning himself protectively before Mark. The captured traffickers exchanged knowing glances. "Advance scout," the leader explained, despite his predicament. "Always checks the route before the convoy. You're already too late." Jack's mind calculated options with the strategic precision that had kept him alive through 20 years of police work. The approaching scout would discover them within minutes, and the entire operation would be alerted. "Mark, we need to split up," Jack decided quickly. "I'm sending Sierra to your department with coordinates and information. Maverick, Ranger, and I will handle the scout and gather intelligence on their operation." Mark looked skeptical. "You're sending a dog for help? Will she even know where to go?" "Sierra once tracked a missing child 11 miles through a blizzard," Jack replied with absolute confidence. "She'll find her way to Eagle Ridge faster than any human could navigate this terrain." Jack quickly scribbled their coordinates and essential information on a piece of paper from his emergency pack, securing it inside Sierra's special training collar. Kneeling before his loyal companion, he looked into her intelligent eyes. "Sierra." "Find police!" he commanded firmly, using their emergency assistance signal. "Find police! Bring help!" The female Labrador's eyes reflected understanding beyond animal comprehension. Without hesitation, she slipped silently into the undergrowth, disappearing with purposeful speed toward civilization. With Sierra racing toward help, Jack turned to his remaining Labrador Retrievers and their prisoners. "Let's move to higher ground," he ordered, helping Mark to his feet. "Maverick, scout ahead. Ranger, guard rear." The Labrador Retrievers understood their assignments immediately. Maverick moved forward in tactical silence, while Ranger positioned himself behind the group, watching for pursuit. The two captured traffickers stumbled forward under Jack's watchful eye, their expressions revealing growing concern about their situation. "You don't understand what you're up against," the older trafficker warned as they climbed toward a rocky outcropping that would provide both cover and visibility. "This operation has connections higher up than you can imagine." Jack remained focused on their immediate survival rather than intimidation attempts. "Save your breath for climbing," he advised coolly. "You'll need it." They reached a defensible position overlooking the old Firewatch Tower just as the sun began its descent behind the mountain peaks. From this vantage point, they could observe the entire operation while remaining hidden among the natural rock formations. Mark settled against a boulder, his strength improving, but still limited. "How long do you think before your dog reaches town?" "Sierra can cover those 15 miles in under 2 hours," Jack replied, confidence evident in his voice. "The question is whether anyone will understand her message." "And if they don't?" Mark asked quietly. Jack's expression remained resolute. Then we do what we can with what we have. He turned to Maverick and Ranger, who maintained vigilant positions, despite the long hike. These two have never let me down before. As if confirming his words, Maverick suddenly alerted toward the logging road below, ears forward and body tense. Through impromptu binoculars fashioned from his emergency kit, Jack observed a single vehicle approaching the watchtower, the advance scout, returning earlier than expected. "We have company," Jack whispered, signaling Ranger to guard their captives while he and Maverick observed the new development below. A man exited the vehicle, clearly agitated as he examined the empty guard post. He tried his radio repeatedly, growing visibly concerned at the lack of response from his missing colleagues. "He knows something's wrong," Mark whispered. "If he reports back—" Jack nodded grimly. "Maverick and I need to handle this before he alerts the main convoy. Stay here with Ranger." Without waiting for objections, Jack and Maverick began a silent descent toward the watchtower, using natural cover and their years of tactical training to approach unseen. The scout continued checking the perimeter, weapon ready, unaware of the approaching threat. Maverick moved with supernatural silence despite his size, positioning himself for maximum strategic advantage. Jack signaled him with hand commands they had perfected through hundreds of operations together. The takedown, when it came, was textbook perfection. Maverick launched with explosive power, targeting the scout's weapon arm with precise pressure. Jack followed immediately, subduing the shocked man before he could radio for assistance. "Federal marshals have had your operation under surveillance for weeks," Jack lied convincingly, projecting absolute authority. "Your entire network is being rounded up as we speak." Fear flickered across the scout's face. "I'm just the advance man," he protested. "I don't know details." "Then you're of no use to us," Jack replied coldly. "Maverick, maintain." The Labrador increased pressure just enough to elicit immediate cooperation. "Wait! The convoy has 7 vehicles coming from the North Access Road," the scout revealed quickly. 18 men total, heavily armed. It's 300 kilos tonight, our biggest shipment yet. With 3 captured traffickers now secured back at their defensive position, Jack and the Labrador Retrievers had valuable intelligence, but remained dangerously outnumbered. Mark's condition had improved slightly with rest and water, but he was still in no condition for confrontation with armed criminals. "If your dog succeeds, how long before help arrives?" Mark asked, eyeing the setting sun with growing concern. "Sierra should reach the station within the next hour," Jack calculated. "Depending on mobilization time, maybe 2 hours until backup arrives." He paused, assessing the fading light. "But that convoy will be here within 40 minutes based on what our friend told us." Ranger maintained perfect guard position over their captives, his intense focus unwavering despite hours of vigilance. Maverick scouted the perimeter, returning periodically to exchange silent communications with Jack. The bond between man and dogs transcended conventional understanding, each anticipating the other's thoughts through subtle signals developed over years of partnership. "We need to delay that convoy," Jack decided, scanning their limited resources. "Buy time for Sierra's message to bring reinforcements." Using materials from his emergency pack and items gathered from the surroundings, Jack constructed simple but effective obstacles along the narrow logging road, not enough to stop determined traffickers, but sufficient to slow their progress and create confusion in the gathering darkness. As they worked, Maverick suddenly tensed, ears swiveling toward the eastern ridge. But instead of a warning posture, the Labrador's tail gave a hopeful twitch. Ranger mirrored this reaction immediately, both dogs focusing intently on the same distant point. "Something's coming," Jack whispered, hands signaling both Labrador Retrievers to hold position. Through the gathering twilight, a dark shape moved purposefully toward them. Sierra had returned, tongue lolling with exertion from her 15-mile sprint. Behind her, moving with practiced stealth, came 6 tactical officers, in full gear. Hope surged through Jack and Mark simultaneously. Sierra had accomplished the seemingly impossible mission. "Your neighbor recognized her immediately," the tactical team leader, Captain Lewis, explained as his team secured the perimeter. "The note was clear, and we were already investigating Officer Reeves's disappearance. State police are setting up roadblocks 5 miles out." With professional efficiency, Lewis incorporated Jack's intelligence into their response plan. Despite being years out of service, Jack and his Labrador Retrievers were automatically included in the tactical discussion, their knowledge and abilities too valuable to ignore. "We're still outnumbered," Lewis acknowledged, "but we have surprise and position. Your Labrador Retrievers just gave us the advantage we need." The plan formed rapidly, simple by necessity, but leveraging their limited resources. As the convoy approached the narrowest section of the logging road, they would disable the lead and rear vehicles, trapping the others between. Sierra, Maverick, and Ranger would create a crucial distraction at the critical moment. Jack knelt beside his faithful companions before taking position. "This is what all those years of training were for," he told them, seeing perfect focus in their attentive eyes. These extraordinary animals understood the stakes in ways that defied conventional understanding of canine cognition. The convoy approached cautiously through the gathering darkness, headlights illuminating the deteriorating logging road. Jack watched from his concealed position as the lead SUV slowed, near his makeshift roadblock. Everything hinged on perfect timing. "Now," Lewis whispered into his radio, and the operation exploded into action. Sierra, Maverick, and Ranger burst from separate positions with perfect coordination, their powerful bodies moving with strategic purpose. Their unexpected appearance created precisely the planned distraction, drivers swerving in panic, traffickers emerging from vehicles with weapons raised but attention divided. In that crucial moment of confusion, the tactical team executed their plan flawlessly. Specialized rounds disabled the engines of the lead and rear vehicles, while officers converged from multiple positions. The 3 Labrador Retrievers performed magnificently, targeting armed traffickers with precision that spoke to their years of professional training. The traffickers, though heavily armed, found themselves overwhelmed by the strategic precision of the operation. Within minutes, the entire convoy was secured, with minimal shots fired and no casualties on either side. State police arrived to take control of the scene and the substantial drug seizure. Jack stood quietly with his 3 Labrador Retrievers at his side, watching as Mark received medical attention. The young officer caught his eye across the chaos, raising a hand in profound gratitude. Captain Lewis approached, shaking his head in amazement. "Those dogs of yours just helped bring down one of the largest drug operations in the state's history. The DEA has been chasing these guys for over a year." He paused, looking at the Labrador Retrievers with newfound respect. "They deserve medals for this." Jack smiled, kneeling to embrace his loyal companions as they pressed against him. "Their mission complete. They didn't do it for medals," he replied simply. "They did it because that's who they are." In the weeks that followed, the story of Sierra, Maverick, and Ranger's heroism spread nationwide. News channels featured their remarkable journey and the incredible bond between the retired police officer and his Labrador Retrievers. Their story became the perfect example of these magnificent animals' extraordinary capabilities and loyalty. For Jack Reynolds, the greatest reward wasn't the commendations or media attention, but the quiet evenings on his porch with Sierra, Maverick, and Ranger resting peacefully beside him, extraordinary heroes, content once again with their well-earned retirement, their legacies secure in the knowledge that when duty called one final time, they had answered with everything they had. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Share it with someone who loves inspiring stories and help us spread messages of courage and loyalty.